So hello everybody and welcome to the weekly call of ODTN. Thanks for joining, and today we're gonna start by having a discussion around the blog post for phase 1.0 demo. I had some discussions with Nokia and Telefonica regarding the date for this document to be published. I pushed for the blog post to be published in order to have a fixed date. I was just wondering what is the state of you guys, so we can have we can set a date to publish this. And if anybody is interested, the blog post is actually this one. Just give it a second. I can actually do this now. So Dominique, Ramon, or Arturo, can you share the state of Nokia and Telefonica demo so we can establish a time frame?
Can you hear me, Dominique speaking?
Yes, perfectly fine, Dominique, thanks.
Okay. Yes, all the tests all the tests for the ODTN phase 1.0 were successfully performed with Telefonica, with their help and with access to their lab. We have set up also ONOS with for sure all the development have been done by the ODTN members, and including also the Nokia drivers. And the use case the tests were successfully performed. It works perfectly. And we have also prepared the use case demonstration in order to activate the connectivity service and also to delay the connectivity service. And we have also worked on how to display this use case. And now the joint Nokia Bell Labs and Telefonica works for ODTN 1.0 is ready to be published to ODTN Wiki, and it should be published this week. We just completed today's recording because we have also prepared a video recording to show. And if you want, we can also, I don't know if Kwan is connected, but if Kwan is connected, we can also run, if it's necessary, a small demo for you now or later, whenever you want. But it's ready and it should be published this week on the wiki. And the video, we still improve the script because it was not easy to display all the script, but it's completed and it's a matter of minutes or maybe hours to complete it.
Sorry, guys, I was muted. I was saying that we can have a small demo at the end of the call if we have the time. If not, I would suggest that you guys share on the ODTN mailing list the demo and the video as soon as you have it done, and you write the wiki page. And as soon as the wiki page is up, I will update the blog post and send it over for review before to all of you guys and then to our PR group for us to publish it. Would that be okay?
For Nokia Bell Labs, yes, perfectly. Arturo, if you have comments on that.
On my side, it will be perfect as well. Just regarding that about the demo, I think that the video has not yet finished, so I think that it will be ready in the following days, but not after this call, I think.
That's perfectly fine. I think that we can wait a couple more days for a compelling demo. In the meantime, I was wondering if Hiroki or Stefan have any update on the NTT video, which is ready but has some doubts about the possibility of publishing it due to IP of Infinera being present into it.
would you mean is there any update to the blog post about the ODTN phase 1 NDT?
Looks like we've lost Andrea. It says offline. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Sorry.
Please back.
Yeah, I had some connectivity issues. I hope I'm back. Sorry, I was just about to reply to Hiroki saying that, yeah, it was a question not on what is on the wiki, but more on the video that you guys made with Infinera. And I was wondering if, since it showed some of the Infinera UI, could that be shared? What's the state of that?
Okay, you will have to go and clear that with Infinera marketing and the people that you were working with.
Okay, thanks. So having said that, I think we can have a blog post published by the end of the week. Both the video from Nokia and Telefonica is done, and since that is pretty much done, and I think we will also hear from Infinera pretty soon. So by the end of the week, I think we can publish this to put a fixed point in time when we did the phase 1.0. So regarding the different operations for the transponders that we discussed, I started an email thread, and thanks to Hiroki and Arturo who replied to it. And I think we were on agreement upon the version of the OpenConfig models which we should define as a standard for ODTN. This doesn't mean that all of you guys who have already written the drivers should rewrite to this OpenConfig models, but these OpenConfig models will be the ones we will be asking going forward. And based on this, we will also write the reference design. I'm sharing the video now. Would everybody be okay with these set of models and these versions? And Hiroki and Arturo, can you please elaborate more on that?
Have a question about the version of the models. This is the list that I sent to the mailing list last week.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was mentioning in the mail that I sent that basically this set of versions, well, the list of models and the set of versions is according our prior analysis that we have done in Telefonica some months ago, and the version of the models is according the latest version that it was at that moment. I was talking about February. So it is possible, and in fact is confirmed, that some of the models that are listed in this list have newer versions now in the public repository, so in the public release. So my suggestion it will be to review them specifically the versions and the release date, in order to update it with the newer versions that are updated according to the latest, let's say, standardized version. Do you think that is a good approach?
Yes, definitely. I think that it would be great to do. Could you do it, Arturo? Could you update these models
yes, I can
and
do
share it out again? Thanks, that would be great.
I will do it, yes.
Thanks.
This is Ramon. One minor comment. In the past, we have had some problems with some specific Yang models. Right now, we are not using Yang tools that much, so we're a bit free, more or less. But can we do something a bit more pragmatic? Are these models already in ONOS? Are these the ones that are in master, or are we diverging? Are we diverging a lot? Because one of the things is that at least we know that the models that in master compile.
Yes, Arturo. Sorry, Ramon. That's a very good question. So I believe the ones we have in master are a bit outdated. But why I think that we can also go with this approach. We define the list. Arturo defines the list with the models that we should tell everybody to be compliant with from now to the future, and then we check what is existing in ONOS, and do a diff between these two models, and based on that, figure out if the newer models compile. If the newer models compile, we're good. If they don't compile, then we figure out what's missing to make them compile. Would that be okay?
That's perfect, really reasonable to me, and I believe that even if some of the models have increased version, it's likely that the changes are not as affecting what we are doing in ODTN. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, we are not actually using Yang tools a lot, so I think that we're a bit safe from that side. I don't see a lot of difference, at least from the SVI, between all the machinery of Yang tools and gazillion lines imports and directly writing the XML. So it's still something that we didn't explore a lot. But yeah, it seems a plan.
Okay. Yeah. And I will make the comparison between the two when Arturo shares them. Okay. So and that is for the southbound. That we'll talk about TAPI a little bit more later. So I wanted to hear from everybody what is the state of the drivers. I know the Nokia drivers are pretty much completed, in the sense that there is the device description discovery who finds the devices, and I know Kwan has a patch on it. There's a few comments from Utah, very minor comments that needs to be addressed, and we're working on those too. So I think those are on the good side. Hiroki, what is the state of the refactoring of the Infinera drivers?
The refactoring is almost done, but now they are testing with the OpenConfig netconf emulator. So I think we can upload to the Garrett in a couple of weeks.
Andrea, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So ONOS is a SDN controller.
Yes.
You use it to go and configure the network, and for that we can go and configure the transponder.
Yes.
So in the field, I have a transponder that is dating from 2 years ago.
Yes.
And I have other transponder that are brand new.
Yes.
And the old one, that 2 years ago, doesn't have any update on his software. So his interface is still based on previous release. 0.8 of OpenConfig, and the other new one is based on interface 1.2. So is it not the job of the mediation function of the southbound interface in an SDN controller to adapt to the version that you have in your equipment that you manage?
Yes, absolutely. That is definitely what we are doing with the drivers in ONOS. And if you take a look, basically the Nokia drivers have one version of OpenConfig, and the Infinera ones, which Hiroki is developing, has their version of OpenConfig. Well, I guess your version of OpenConfig. And also the Metro Hall, which is defined by Ramon and Alessio, their OpenConfig driver has the version which is in the version we were discussing before. So we are definitely striving to achieve and give you the possibility to just write a driver which complies to your OpenConfig version. What I want to do, and we were discussing before for the list of OpenConfig versions that is shown here, is that I want to tell somebody, if you have to do it, or do you want to be compliant out of the box without writing any code, we will have a driver with these versions. So if you come up with a device that has these version of the models that are supported, you're just going to work right out of the box.
So that's your baseline.
Exactly. If your box and your drivers and your OpenConfig version differs from what we have, you can write your own. But you have to put in the effort to write the driver. We are not going to write it. So in this case, for example, let's say you have Infinera transponder with a 0.8 version, which supports some older models. Somebody, either the Infinera people or the operator people, let's say NTT, will have to write a 0.8 driver, which will look very much the same as the 1.12, which is already in the repository. And you can copy and borrow it, but you will probably have to change some minor XML due to the fact that the model have changed. So you could still do it, but it doesn't work exactly right out of the box. Did I make myself clear?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And there are plenty of examples. So if you need an example on how exactly to write the driver, we can discuss it. There is a discussion about it later. But there are plenty of examples in ONOS, and also plenty of examples of OpenConfig ODTN related drivers. So I think that's good. Okay, so thanks for that discussion. Alessio, Ramon, what about the existing OpenConfig ODTN OpenConfig driver?
This is Ramon speaking. This week, what we've been doing with Alessio, we're working on several things, but this week, what we try to do is to extend our current driver with the flow rule programmable behavior. It's still not clear. Right now, we're doing some tests also with Roberto of Telecom Italia. We want to have on the one hand, OpenConfig devices, on the other hand, OpenRODOM devices. And what we want is that optical intents work flawlessly, regardless of if you're using OpenRODOM or OpenConfig. And the easiest way for this is to have flow rule programmable behavior implemented by the OpenConfig. We still have questions because we're making a lot of assumptions. For example, either you assume that your client, your line ports are fully tunable and you just do the Lambda query with a C-band as usual, or you assume that you have already pre-established optical channels in the line, and then depending on these optical channels, these are the lambdas that you disseminate. But it's still just a work in progress. We're thinking this. So any inputs, it's useful. This is why I was checking also Arturo's emails to the list, and we still don't know how to move on from here.
Okay, so I think that's a very low-level discussion that it's not the right time to have, at least right now. If you could share your use case in a mail, that would be good.
Yeah, of course, it's work in progress. Just to tell you about this.
Okay, thanks. So I just put Cassini and EdgeCore. I don't know. Do we have anybody from EdgeCore on the call? Believe not. Yeah. So as you know, EdgeCore is working on the Cassini box, which is transponder for the in conjunction with the TIP project. I had an update from Hiroki that they are currently building. That's a white box, so it has all the benefits of that, and they're currently building their netconf agent, and will be shared by the end of August. Just to let everybody know that, so we have even more options.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andre, and there are no netconf agent, and now they're trying to create some driver to the Cassini's DSP SDK. So, and they can now they're developing this kind of driver, and they can start to develop netconf agent driver. I'm sorry, netconf agent of the Cassini device from the end of August.
Okay.
So yeah, so maybe we can start to use this Cassini's netconf agent. Maybe I think end of the September or October.
Okay. I can also follow up with the people at TIP and at the people for EdgeCore to see if this can be made more of a priority. Let's see about that. So, well, that was the following point is a bit of a note from myself, but just about the discussion we had before with Stefan. Okay. So now let's move towards phase 1.5 and the phase 1.5 timeline. So here, everybody can see this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had some internal discussions at ONF and with some of you guys, and our current idea of the ODTN phase 1.5 demo is that if we can, it's not a hard date, but I would strive to push it and be sure that we can make that date, is that we will have phase 1.5 ready, or at least in almost done for the ONF Connect event, which is at the 4th of December this year. So meaning we kind of have 3 months and something to achieve phase 1.5. And when I say achieve phase 1.5 is that, but basically there are a few set of steps that we need to take. The first step is develop the workflow for the OLS devices. And for that, we can use an emulator. That emulator is the one Hiroki shared on the wiki page, and I can actually put the link down here in the document of the minutes of the meeting. Taking notes, and I will share that link to the emulator, and that goes hand in hand to the fact that the TAPI 2.1 implementation is currently in the develop branch, at least, is fixed for the connectivity request part, which is what we're going to use from ONOS to this OLS controller to provision a connectivity service. So at least for that part, TAPI is done on the develop branch. It's not released yet. That release is coming down the line, but at least for the connectivity service Yang model, that is done. So we can use it to build the emulator, and through the emulator we can build the workflow, which we will discuss later, in ONOS. So the idea is that by the end of October, we should be able to have all the ONOS side code working, and then we will have to integrate it with a TAPI 2.1 compliant OLS controller. In the meantime, what we should actually do is that while developing the workflow for the OLS controller, and we will obviously use the driver subsystem as we have done for the transponders, so Telefonica and Nokia could actually start already integrating their existing OLS that supports TAPI 2.0.2.
So Andrea, this
yes.
is Gary. Yeah, I just want to comment on that briefly. So our OLS system, the northbound TAPI on that system is in development, and you know, we believe it will be available sometime this year. I was talking with Lubo. He thinks probably third quarter is unlikely for that. So I just, you know, I want to put it out there that,
okay,
you know, this is, you know, TAPI 2.0 OLS is under development. It's under development for that, but it's not clear exactly when it will be available. So I think that would have to be a discussion with Lubo to try to pin that down. He has a much better sense of that. He's just relaying stuff to us. We're in research. He's in the business unit, so he could, you know, clarify that. But yeah, so I just, you know, just want to, you know, 2020 vision here, be clear on what the situation is. Yeah.
Okay, I can actually raise this up on a separate thread with Lubo and discuss that. Okay, one quick question: since it is in development, would it be worth taking a look at already doing the 2.1 instead of 2.0.2 version? It's an open question. I know that 2.0.2 is already standardized. 2.1 is not. Is released. 2.1 is not released. But in my opinion, there's a lot of code that can be written without strongly depending on the TAPI version.
Kartik, do you want to comment on this? Because I heard the word is release. We have submitted something in the development branch. It's not released yet. So just to make clear, 2.1 is not released yet. It is. We have submitted something in the development branch. We will update it this week. From what we will go and present in a few minutes if we have the time. But it's not released yet. Just make clear.
Right. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. It's not released, but that's the thing. Like working with both Nokia and Engineer on this. But yeah, I guess the product teams will have to make a call on that, Andrea.
Okay, sure.
So you can discuss with Lubo, and that's of course Stefan is making the call on it on his side. You can probably discuss with Lubo and Nokia team.
Okay.
I have a question. Sorry, you were written in the notes that the UML version of TAPI 2.1 is ready for revision of ODTN. It is there is a plan for conversion into YANG and publishing into the public repo of ONF TAPI.
Yes.
Yes.
I was just discussing this morning with before with Kartik and Stefan and the other people on the TAPI call about this, and at least the connectivity service, the existing UML is the closest thing we're going to get to the release in the development branch, and they're going to generate the YANG models for that today, I think. Kartik, can you comment on that?
Yeah. I'll have the first snapshot today, but yeah, I'll work with Stefan also.
Okay, thanks.
Fine, thank you.
Stefan and Andrea. That's Andrea Mazzini from Nokia.
Okay. Okay, so let me finish on the phase 1.5. In the meantime, we will also continue to develop and augment the configuration subsystem in order to support some of the rollback and other use cases, dry run and plug and play and all of those things. And with the notion of DCS 2.0. This is still under discussion, and I will have a presentation ready for you that I will make at a following call because I want to discuss this properly with other people inside ONF, especially Thomas Wachuska and Brian O'Connor. And they're currently held by the ONOS release. So we are currently commenting on the architecture of what would be like the dynamic configuration subsystem 2.0. And I will make a presentation to you guys at a later point in time. At the same time, as Hiroki was mentioning before, by the end of September, the people from EdgeCore will develop the Cassini driver, and we will integrate it whenever it's ready with ONOS itself, and we hopefully can make this box work with ODTN phase 1.5 by at the end of December too, by the start of December too. What I want to share with all of you guys is that, yes, I would like to do a demo of phase 1.5 at ONF Connect at December the 4th, and I will share more about ONF Connect a little bit later. But I would very much like to have better quality and production-ready code than to do a demo. So if to get to the demo, we will have to cut shortcuts and make compromises, we will not do the demo. We will not make the shortcuts, not take any compromises, but instead do the right thing and plainly say in December, we wanted to do the right thing, so the demo is currently still under development, and we can do the demo in OFC in March. So it would be very nice to have the demo in December the 4th at ONF Connect, but let's not get hung over the demo and take shortcuts. This is a real message that I want to pin down and that everybody knows. I want to do the right thing, and I wanted it done the proper way, both modeling wise and code wise. And if we end up not doing the demo at ONF Connect, that's perfectly fine. We will say we have an optical event in 2 months, we're going to do it at the optical event. And since this is mainly an internal draft of the timeline, we don't have to publish this anywhere. So it's more for us to keep ourselves in pace. So we will not, I'm not committing that we are going to do a demo. If we end up doing it, that's great. If not, we can do it at OFC. Okay, so any questions on the timeline? No? Okay, great. Let me go to the next point. So, okay, I've added to this document 2 documents where I wrote down the workflow for both the transponder and the optical line system. So let me go over the transponder a little bit. So the device discovery part describes what needs to be done to make the discovery available, to make the device available to ONOS. So it needs an implementation of the device discovery Java class and then provide a JSON file. The way in which we are currently also using the device is the configurable transceiver. We currently have a default implementation of the configurable transceiver, which is called plain transceiver. Which is the second link. The first link is the interface. This interface will be the one that we would need to augment for phase 1.5 for the transponders to configure the wavelength and the optical layer, because at the moment it just only does enable and disable a connection between a client side and a line side port. What I would need to do is to augment here the models that we expect from the devices once we have agreed all onto the other thread. Questions?
The question for you, like the current model of OpenConfig, you can go and set up the center wavelength.
Yes.
because that's present in the. You don't need to augment it. It's
No.
you want to amend in ONOS. Okay.
I'm not saying we
Augment in
need to
ONOS.
augment the OpenConfig models. We need to augment the ONOS classes. This is really ONOS related.
Okay.
We need to augment the ONOS classes
good.
in terms of the configurable transceiver to be able to generate also the wavelength XML and the optical layer XML in order to send it down to the device with line side, client side, wavelength, optical layer.
Okay. So
please go ahead.
So you get your center wavelength. What else do you want to go and augment?
Well, you need the optical layer to properly configure then, or at least receive it from the OLS to do the end-to-end setup, right?
Yeah, but on a transmitter side, like if you have your model, you want to be able to go and discover your transponder and discover the capability that it has for the central wavelength. What is the range? Because in the OpenConfig you don't have that.
Oh,
what is the range?
Yes.
What is the range of wavelength that you can go and tune, and what is the granularity? None of that is present in OpenConfig. So in terms of capability, this is an issue that they have.
Agreed.
So you need to have a way to provide this information. So if somebody is doing a device driver for the specific equipment, they can go and place the information inside it and push it back to the ONOS. But ONOS need to have this, okay, I have a transponder, this is the capability that I have, this is the granularity that I have for my center wavelength. So you can go and place it at this specific frequency. Is it a fix or is it this flex?
Yes.
And if it is fixed, which granularity can go and take as central wavelength? You have also to need to have also the width that will be used for the signal. So you need to know what is the width that they will be able to do. So if you are doing 16 QAM or you're doing QPSK, what will be the width of the signal that will be used for transmission? So that thing you need to be able to go and have this information in the model.
Yes. So what we are currently doing in ONOS for that is that we have an a set of optical behaviors that enable you to specify these values in the ONOS driver. So even if they're not in the OpenConfig model, somebody who is writing the ONOS driver for it can actually specify them through a set of Java classes. I cannot remember them top of my head right now, but I've put a note in the document to augment this with those specific classes through which you can discover the lambda, if it's a flex grid, if it's a fixed grid, you can discover all of those elements. And I'll put it in here. And if it needs augmentation for phase 1.5, we can increment it. This is really ONOS related. I know it's not in the OpenConfig model, but this information will be known to anybody who is actually creating the driver, because I mean, it's device information that even if it's not exposed to OpenConfig, it's known about the device. So we just basically hard code it into Java.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions on this workflow? Does it make sense for somebody that needs to integrate a device with ODTN to implement the device description discovery and a behavior which is called the configurable transceiver, or the configurable transceiver with all the methods?
Andrea, I would like to add something, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Since I wrote the terminal device discovery with Utah, you should note here that it is expected that the guys implementing the agent have to follow some agreements that were needed to, for example, to name the ports. So if you check the source code, you will see that we are actually annotating the ports with some data that we retrieve from the XML. Yes. And we expect that people implementing the agents, they follow those conventions. I think Utah has a
quick question. Are those conventions written somewhere?
Yuta was working on a wiki page, and I think he started writing them down. I have no idea where that page is. Of course, the best answer is the source code, but we have things like OpenConfig supports properties or some kind of mapping or that kind of generic terms where you can basically annotate whatever. It is expected that people implementing agents use ONOS port index, just to give an example. And they basically assign what integer would be that port number and that kind of things. There are a couple of conventions. Also, you have to tell if the port is client or it's line. And that was the comment. So for terminal device discovery to work perfectly fine, we need help from the people implementing the agent.
Okay, I will check with Yuta. I have a call with him tomorrow, so I will discuss with him about these optical port conventions and if they are written anywhere, and if not, I'll make sure that we write them down so we can point people through this workflow also at those conventions.
Yeah, regarding these conventions, I will like also to have this information.
We reached that agreement because it was a trade-off of reaching 1.0 in time. I agree with you. Those conventions may need to be reviewed. The main one right now is that we need a common way to numerate the ports so ONOS can represent like the port 1, port 2, port 3, and that's the main one. Whether it's client or line, then you can augment also the OpenConfig model and do it in the right way. But I would say that this is needed for 1.0 as it is now.
Okay, I was wondering just, I mean, this behavior about the numbering of the ports is because ONOS need integers for the naming of the ports. You cannot, I mean, using the index, for instance, or.
Yes, exactly. You need integers 1, 2, 3, and so on. And OpenConfig, some old version have IETF index, but they remove it in a later version, so we couldn't rely on that. So in order to have a common numbering of the ports, we rely on the agent to tell us what port number is that one.
Okay, I would suggest that this is a specific case, for instance, on where, let's say, ONOS, let's say, is not able to read strings for the, let's say, naming of the ports, it will be possible to implement this mapping between the actual namings of the devices and the index that you are giving to be represented in ONOS, maybe making this mapping within the drivers itself in order to do not constrain the implementation of the agents of the devices. I mean,
at some point you need the mapping. We thought that it was decoupling, it was a cleaner solution. So, but of course, if you have that mapping information, you can implement hard code it in the driver. I don't think it's either an elegant solution, but of course it's just a matter of choice. You can do that, of course.
Yes. So I was okay. I'll take a look deeper into this piece of the code. I was not aware of this agreement that was needed from the agent side. I would argue that I would like to remove it, and it clearly can be done in the drivers. So yes, it would be hard coding, but I'll dive into the code and discuss with Yuta more about this and come back with a proposal / solution by next week. Or I'll share it on the mailing list and discuss it over there too.
So another component that may be needed here, depending on whether we're going to do it for this phase or for the next phase, is managing the spectrum. If the ONOS controller is able to discover the wavelength capabilities of each of the transponders, then if you have multiple transponders, then the wavelengths have to be chosen so as to not deconflict and to have sufficient guard band, whatever the spacing, whatever the capabilities of the transponders are. So that component, the spectral management part, is presumably going to be resident in ONOS itself, and it's going to be managing that. Just because, and there's a case where you discover what each of the transponders can do, but then if you want to assign multiple wavelengths, you have to deconflict them. So there is a little bit of a an optimization problem there that can be solved. But anyway, that ingredient needs to be present in ONOS to be able to manage that spectrum.
Definitely. I've taken a note about
it. We always stated that in this model with the ODTN, the PC is done in the ONOS. So ONOS has to be able to, is doing the job of a PC. Is because that's the thing that you want to be able to go and share as a source code. So you get a PCE, he resolves the spectrum allocation in the network, and he is able to go and set up the transponder, appropriate wavelengths and the frequency, and is able to go and request to the OLS the appropriate allocation of the spectrum that you want to make your passband. So in order to do that, you need to be able to read the capability of your transponder that is present in the system. You need to know which port of transponder are connected to which port of a line system. And you need to be able to read the capability of the line system. So the OLS need to be able to expose what is the capability for making passband connection.
I have one major comment on this. One of the critical issues that we should define for this phase is either the ONOS controller is going to be the responsible of making the path computation in the optical layer, or this capability is going to be left to the OLS controller. Based on that, there is different constraints. If, for instance, you are exposing that the ONOS is going to implement the PCE, the path computation, then TAPI 2.1 should be fully implemented by the OLS controller in order to make this work, because actually we will need this TAPI extension in order to have the lambda map of the different links in the photonic layer in order to make this computation feasible from the PC in the ONOS. Otherwise, if the OLS controller is going to be in charge on, let's say, providing the path computation in the photonic layer, then one of the constraints is that the OLS controller defines the lambda that is going to be set up for the media channel, and then is configured in the transponder. So the workflow will be first you select or you request for the media channel in the OLS, later you configure the transponder. I think that this is one of the critical things that we should define here.
Yeah, it's Arturo. Yeah. What I was saying is like when we get this face-to-face meeting at the ODTN, like Mark was very keen to have the ONOS to do the PCE calculation, because I stated at that time that we could have an OLS that is an SDN controller and will do the PCE, but the goal from the ONOS was to do the PCE. So I say, okay, perfect. So you can go and do the PCE, and we would just go and accept the connectivity service with the route qualification. So that means that we'll be able to know what will be the path that we'll be using. In order to have the ONOS to be able to do that, we need to be able to expose the constraint of the routing in each of the RODM node. And that was the model that was accepted before. So if we want to go and review that thing and revise it, then yes, we could have a discussion on that thing. I'm just stating that that was the agreement before.
Okay.
Actually, we discussed here in this group in the phase 1.5 what it was going to be the scope of the phase 1.5, and actually the votation or the voting that we carried out displayed that the path computation for the photonic layer was going to remain in the OLS controller, if I don't remember wrong. But I don't have objection on discussing this in this group, in this forum, but we should analyze the constraint that it imposed one of the choices, because from my point of view, if you are saying, okay, we are very interested in that ONOS is going to perform the path computation, that from my personal opinion is fine. I think that it gives a lot of value to the project and so on. The constraint is that the exposure of the photonic layer from the OLS controller should be feasible. This is something that implies that TAPI 2.1 is implemented in the OLS controller, and this is something that I think that from now there is not a solution that is giving us that possibility. If you are telling me no, yes, but there is this vendor that is compromising to have an OLS controller with this capability exposure of TAPI 2.1 within the time frame that Andrea has mentioned before, I will say it's fine. It's something that we can do for this phase. Otherwise, we should analyze this requirement or this, let's say, architectural choice. This is my point of view.
Yeah, good. So Andrea, yeah, I just stated something that we talked before. If the operator decided to do differently, because I'm not an operator, so if the operator decided to do something else, I would like to know, because if it is an SDN controller that you want to build as an OS, then TAPI is the interface that you should have, because it would go and provide you the connectivity services and the PC services. Yeah, all the interface will be defined for that. So you can go and request connectivity services, and the PC will be there to go and expose you the possible connection.
Okay.
Yeah, but this was sort of the impasse that we came about last time, right? When we had this discussion that PCE can be done in ONOS, but that requires a lot of exposure of information, or you have to settle for the fact that it's going to be suboptimal if you don't expose sufficient amount of information. So, but then the alternative is, okay, so to come to exposing the amount of information, then you look at the project and say, well, what can be accomplished? And then that's to Arturo's point, which is, if what level of exposure is going to be available near term, and it's not clear where that's at right now. And there may be just the reality of it. If to move forward, this is how we kind of came down on this. Came around to this point last time, was that just to make progress, we probably have to look at a near-term solution where the OLS is carrying that burden of doing the PCE, and basically the controller, the ONOS controller, is iterating with the OLS controller, maybe making a guess at a frequency assignment, seeing if it works. It doesn't, and the OLS controller tries it, doesn't work, then another try, or simply a service request could be made to the OLS controller, and the OLS controller responds. So something, but there, yeah. This is kind of this model.
In the current model, you would go and make a request for connectivity services, and you would, as a result, you would go and get the wavelength assignment from there. You will get this possibility, so you go and select the one that you want.
Sorry, Stefan, you would get the wavelength assignment from where? From ONOS or from the OLS?
from the OLS. If you made the PCE inside the
Right.
OLS, you will get the
Right.
wavelength assignment
Guys,
because it gives you
From there. That's right. That's right.
So my take on this would be the following. We go for the simplest approach in ONOS right now because we don't have a lot of development resources, and there's a lot to be done if the PCE with optical constraints has to be done inside ONOS itself. So my personal opinion, but I would actually leave it at here and then everybody thinks about it and we decide next week. My personal opinion would be that since phase 2.0 would actually require a full PCE, we will eventually build it. Because if you have a disaggregated ROADM device and a full mesh topology, you will need the PCE with all the optical information, the media channel, the wavelengths, and all of it. But at this moment in time, since TAPI 2.1 is still ongoing, since we don't have a lot of development resources and we still have to figure out some quirks in the transponder side to configure the wavelength and the optical layer, and for example, all the things we discussed before, I would say we finish the transponders with these information while keeping the PC in the OLS. Then, when phase 2.0 comes out, we will actually build the PC inside ONOS for the full ROADM mesh network. And that same PCE could actually still work with an OLS that exposes TAPI 2.1 with the wavelength that is defined by ONOS. Any thoughts?
I will restate that with the following terminology. Like currently in phase 1.5, we are using a single optical domain. So that means that you can go and request from the ONOS, request as an orchestrator connectivity services. When you go to phase 2, you will be able to deal with multiple domain of SDN controller for the optical layer, and then you have to go and resolve through PCE on the orchestrator. So the orchestrator has to be able to deal with multiple domain. This means that you need to be able to go and resolve PCE on his side. It's just a question of the optical domain. If you support only a single one or you support multiple one. If you support multiple one, you have to go and do PCE resolution.
Yeah, in either case, there are potential optimization costs, right? You're going to be suboptimal potentially in either case. If you do it in separate domains and have it done at the OLS level, then it's not clear that two separate domains will come up with the combination end-to-end path that is optimal. On the other hand, if you try to do it all in ONOS, end-to-end, with full visibility of the domains, there's the issue of can all the proper impairment and other detailed physical layer computations be done in such a way as to accurately compute the best path or set of paths. So either way, I think there's going to be trade-offs, really, in terms of suboptimality.
I agree with you. It's the problem of doing multi-domain optical layer.
Okay. Guys, since we're running out of time, I would suggest that everybody thinks about this, and I will put it as a first element next week. I have a pretty clear idea of what we should go for going forward, and I think a lot of you actually agree on that, but let's make sure in a week from now, since nothing is really set. One thing that I wanted to point out is the ONF Connect plans. This is just a link. Please go ahead and look at it. This is the link that presents the conference that we're going to do later in time, 4th to 6th of December. We will definitely have an ODTN track in that conference. So we will discuss, and I would also think that it would be a good time for us to meet in person. I will share more plans. I have to think about it. There's nothing set in stone yet. But if you guys agree, I think it would be great for us to meet, let's say, 1 day or 2 days before the conference, to have a face-to-face discussion regarding what is the state of phase 1.5 at that moment and going on with phase 2.0. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. So, okay, I will also put that as an item for next week's agenda, and so we can make sure that who can be available at the conference and all of that. So, are there any other points? If not, well, thanks everybody. Let's see each other in a week from now, and everybody who has some to-dos, for example, Dominique to share the Nokia demo, and Juan to share the Nokia demo, Arturo to compare the models, I myself to share more details about the models and make the comparison with the ONOS ones, and share the behavior to do the Lambda configuration, and everybody to think about the PCE and the computation where it needs to be done in respect of phase 1.5, phase 2.0, phase 1.5 in ONOS or in the OLS, phase 2.0 state. Please think about that, and we will hear from each other next week. So thanks a lot, everybody.
And Andrea, just one comment. Like we prepared a slide for the
yes,
from the TAPI point of view.
Yes.
Aspect. So next week I can go and present that, because we reviewed that thing before the meeting. So next week I can go and do that aspect.
One thing that you can also do, Stefan, if you want, is to share it with the ODTN mailing list, so everybody is at least more aware of it.
Yeah, now I can do that because we reviewed it this morning.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
and I will put it in the agenda.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.